بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله أما بعد السلام عليكم. Welcome to our Thursday evening Quranic presentation. We're continuing on the chapter 16 verse 112. Chapter 16, verse 112. And we're going to continue on the second part of it this week. So it's not a lot. I'm trying to cut it down somewhat for the students because these are assignments now. That you will be writing reflections and you will be writing comments from Imam Dawood Muhammad, contrasting Imam Dawood Muhammad with Ibn Arabi, one of the great thinkers in the history of Islam, Ibn Arabi. And perhaps Imam Dawood Muhammad, one of the great contemporary thinkers of our time when it comes to the Quran and Islam. So we're going to make a contrast between the two. Let us begin to take a look at chapter 16, verse 112. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And last week we said, وَضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا قَرْيَةً كانت آمنة مطمئنة يأتيها رزقها رغدا من كل مكان. So we said Allah says forth مثلا, an example, قرية, in terms of a people, a town, a group, قرية. And Ibn Arabi, he mentioned qaryatan as being the nafs, safa, a pure nafs, a pure receptacle. The nafs that's a pure receptacle, qarya. We will continue with that idea today. And it was safe and peaceful. Safe, peaceful. يأتيها رزقها, its provisions come to it رغدا, in abundance, من كل مكان, from every place. This we comment on last week. This week we will continue. فكفرت, so they disbelieved. This qarya disbelieved. بأنعم الله, in the favors of Allah. Allah granted them favors, and they disbelieved. They began to reject the favors. فَأَذَقَهَا اللَّهُ لِبَاسَ الْجُوعِ. So Allah caused them to taste. He called them to taste libasa, the clothing of jewelry, the clothing of hunger, wal khawfi, and fear, covering them, like the clothing is something that covers you, covering them with hunger and fear. Be mad because of what kanu yasnaun, because of what they began to manufacture. Yasnaun. Now that's the kind of a straightforward translation. Now, Ibn Arabi comments on this. He's commenting on, starting from فَأَذَاقَهَا. He says, فَأَذَاقَهَا اللَّهُ لِبَاسَ الْجُوعِ وَالْخَوْفِ بِالْإِنْكِطَاعِ, by by cutting off, I'm going to give this to you, maybe not so literal, because the students, you have to go back and take a look at it. But cutting off the extension of, we could say, the of good qualities that was extended to them, that came with the soul. We're talking about cardiac, a pure, clean receptacle. So by cutting them off from extending, you could say to them, good qualities, wal fadaili, and al fadaili, we said, are the moral excellence, virtues, moral virtues, good virtues, moral excellence. Well and wary, and the enlightenments. This, they have the fear. We're talking about the fear and hunger that Allah is cutting them off, which creates fear and hunger in them. Min al-qalbi, from the heart. All of this from the heart that overflows into the soul. Well, khawfi, and the fear. He's commenting on the fear. Min zawali, from the cessation of muqtanayatiha, from the cessation of its acquisitions. The acquisitions of this hag goes back to cardiac. Goes back to cardiac, which goes back to nafs. That these acquisitions, min shahawati, from their desires, passions and desires, it will be cut off. Cut off with the good qualities, the moral excellences, the enlightenments. This will all be cut off from the heart. And the fear, they have this fear from being cut off from the, or stopping, just make it simple, stopping the acquisitions that they would get from their desires and passions. And ma'alufati, and their customs and habits. El-hasiyati, their sensual habits and customs that they have gained from the senses, from their senses. These desires and sensual habits that they have adopted. All of this will cease. Well, mushtahiyat, and we could say those things that they coveted. Or we could say the greed that their senses brought about in influencing their passions and desires. Allah will give them a taste of this, cutting this off. Because so they disbelieved in the favors. They no longer accepted that these favors were coming from Allah. Yes. And you can see that now, even in America. There's some people living in America today that have been favored. Yes, they have been favored. And generations have passed. And today's generation, they may feel this is just the way it is, and enjoying the pleasures of these favors, not knowing what their foreparents went through in order to receive these favors. They think this is just the way it is, and began to reject the idea that they have been blessed by God. Yes. I don't want to say too much. I'm giving hints now for the students because I'm talking to a group of students. I'm not trying to give a detailed presentation like a ta'lim or khutbah or motivational speech or something like that. I'm giving hints for the students to pick up on and extend from what is being said in their writings. Then the part, Bima Kanu Yasnaun. Bima Kanu Yasnaun. Because of what they used to manufacture. Men Kufrani, from the disbelief. This is the second part that we're looking at here. He's commenting on. From the disbelief, we could say, of the favors of Allah. They began to manufacture things in their own mind, we could say. Bil istimaliha, by its usages, the usages of these favors, by its usages, fi in qalbi al-ladhati, in the request of al-ladhati, of, we could say, of pleasurable or sweetness, al-ladhati. Al-hasiyati, sensual, these sensual pleasures, the sensual sweetness that the senses are bringing to them. وَالزَّخَارِفِ, and the embellishments, الدُّنْيَوِيَّةِ, the material embellishments. They began to manufacture things based upon, from their disbelief of the favors, covering up the favors of Allah by its usage, these favors in their request for the things that they have fell in love with, their own senses, what the senses bring to them. They fall in love with their eyes, the physical eyes see. They fall in love with the taste, what their physical tongue tastes. These are senses. They fall in love with the perfumes, the colognes, the things they're smelling, the aromas of well-cooked foods. They're falling in love with these sensual pleasures. They're not penetrating to the more higher spiritual senses. They're rejecting that. And their whole life is based upon the being greedy of satisfying the senses. What they touch, what they feel, the textures of what they feel and touch. These are pleasurable things to the outer senses. They are fell in love with them, along with the embellishment, material embellishments that add to the sensual pleasures. Yes. Allah's giving them a taste of it, of hunger, fear, and hunger. Yes, fearing that they're going to be cut off and hungering for these sensual pleasures at the same time. Threatening to be cut off. That's it for today. We will take a look at it in the class. No, let's look at one part here from the Imam W.D. Muhammad. I almost forgot. Now, we're contrasting Imam W.D. Muhammad with Ibn Arabi. But the students will go in their research, they may find other comments. We're making comments. We're going to be writing a reflection based upon Ibn Arabi on the verse, and then a comment contrasting the reflection from Imam W.D. Muhammad. The comment will be from Imam W.D. Muhammad. The reflection will be from Ibn Arabi. And inshallah, we'll put it in a publication. Very soon, we'll start on a chapter and do the whole chapter. Not every verse, but a chapter. Do the whole chapter of reflecting on Ibn Arabi, writing a reflection from the logic of Ibn Arabi, and writing a comment from the logic of Imam W.D. Muhammad, and make it a publication. So the Imam is saying, most of the human creatures and the lesser creatures that Allah has made, if they are not under the guidance of God, if they are not under the guidance of God, they are under their appetites. Mushtahiyat. They're under their appetites. Shahawat. They have grown into habits. And their appetites, he's saying, bring them under the passions of hunger, greed, and fear. And actually, that's how Satan rules them. I thank you for your time. Assalamu alaikum.